me two changes that you would pursue and why you would make those changes.
Well, first thing we do is to have a true open file policy instead of the claimed open file policy that we have now. I practice in several different counties throughout Texas and have for the last 7 years. I go to other counties. Kaufman County will send me discovery by email, even if I don't ask for it, if I just file an appearance. I have several counties that we can go to, and as a defense attorney, we ask for the file, they give it to us. Dallas County will give you the file. It's even got the prosecutor's file in it. They say don't look in there. Here, you have to set up a meeting, you have to have time, and the so-called open file policy came with a 5 or 6 page letter that pretty well explained to us all, like we were third graders, how we had to behave and what we needed to do and what we could and couldn't ask for and when we better or better not ask for it. And if we didn't do it just right, we would be removed from that. Well, I don't care about being part of that. I have right to discovery as an attorney. I shouldn't have to ask for it. The state should turn it over. There's 2 types. It's either exculpatory, which means it shows the client has done something that the state should reveal that goes towards his innocence, and that's required by law to be turned over, and often it is not here. And the other is just normal discovery, which they ought to give to you. Failure to have an open file policy to me dictates and shows fear or inability to prosecute on part of the office, because if you've got a case and you filed it, you shouldn't have any reason at all to refuse to turn over the information to a defense attorney. If the guy's guilty, committed a crime, you can prove it, take him to trial. What can I do as a defense attorney? I can't affect the facts. I can't affect what happened in the case. All I can do is ensure the defendant receives a constitutionally protected right to fair trial, but I can't monkey with the facts. Those facts are what they are. Withholding that information and having a closed file policy costs this county thousands and thousands of dollars every year. That's the first thing. The second thing, ensure and seek justice. Just see that we get a fair trial, and people that need to go to jail go to jail. And we also need some systems, and we need some programs to help our children. Instead of putting them in jail, we can do some things for intervention and be proactive instead of reactive.
Thank you, Rodney. You alluded earlier to the establishment, and that's one of my bones of contention I have with this. Who and what is, if there is such a thing, the Waxahachie machine that we've heard will elect your opponent?
Who is the Coaster Nostra? Who is the Mafia? Who is whatever? I don't know. Who's the Illuminati? There's no way to know. The only people that know who are the establishment are those that are deeply entrenched in it. Without name calling, everybody knows the people that are involved with the establishment, those that support the incumbent against all odds, regardless of his record. Party affiliation means everything, and if they claim to be a Republican, therefore they must be, whether they are or not. And that's partly what's wrong with this, not just this county, this state, and this nation. Fact is, I'm not a member of the establishment, never have been. They don't care for me, whoever the great they unwashed they are. I've written articles. I am who I am. If you don't want to know what I think, don't ask me. Okay? Because I'm not going to beat around the bush about it. I'll be honest. I've been called brutally honest. I've tried to work on that, become a little more tactful. But the truth hurts. If the truth hurts, tough. It's still the truth. And the establishment in this county we've got kingmakers. I wish I knew who they were, Jimmy, because I'd call them out. I have my suspicions, but I don't know. But they work behind the scenes, and they pick who's going to serve. And the problem is the people don't bother to go and educate themselves about who these people are. They go in the polls, and I'm as guilty as anyone else. Railroad commissioner. Okay, I mean, I don't know them, right? We don't do that, and that's part of the problem. We've gone too long doing that here. The establishment exists. Everybody knows it. We throw that word out, but what it means is supporting the same old retread candidates over and over again. The same people get the same jobs every election, whether they deserve it or not.
All right, here's your roving reporter going out here again. We're looking for questions from the Tea Party. That's you. I see one hand way out here. Get your hand ready.
I don't need the microphone. I just want, this is not a question for Rodney. If y'all are interested in finding out who the establishment is and who the kingmakers are, you can look at these longtime incumbents who you're fixing to go out and vote against. A lot of them, some of them you're gonna vote for, some of them deserve to go back. A lot of them don't. And if you wanna find out who the establishment is that's supporting them, who's behind them, every candidate's campaign finance report is available on the internet. You can go down that list and find out who the kingmakers are. You can go down that list and find out who the establishment people are that donate to these people. And don't, a lot of them aren't even in our communities. A lot of them aren't even in our state. I know my opponent, there's a lot of money that comes out from outside of the state of Texas that goes into his campaign costs. And I just wanted to let people know where they can go to find out who the OpenSecrets.org or Texas Ethics Commission. They have all the candidates' campaign finance.
Wait. Let's get some questions for Rodney here.
All right, okay, here's a question.
Quick follow-up, I'm not sure local candidates are on the internet in a timely way, but you can darn sure go get a copy from the registrar's office. And it is illuminating, to use a term, so thank you.
Another way you can tell who the establishment is, and I just thought of this, you won't find any of them here.
No.
Rodney, I have a question. If you're elected DA, what will you do with the current employees in the DA's office who are attorneys who have very low win rates? My question is, why are we paying them if they can't win their cases?
You know, that's a tough question for somebody running for office. If you don't want to get up here and say, I'm going to hire, fire, get rid of, I don't know, because I don't know the people. I have to look at the records. It'll be just like any other operation. You know, it's a supervisory administrative job. When you go in there, there's going to be performance evaluations on everyone. There are going to be a certain number of people that won't stay, a certain number of people that will stay. I don't know what they'll do. But the fact is, job performance is important. But it's important to remember there's a couple reasons why you would have a low prosecution rate. One may be that you're not a very good lawyer. Okay? The other may be that you're indicting cases that you can't prove. So it may not be so much that the lawyer's horrible as it is that they're accepting horrible cases, and that's happened on occasion, and I've had several that I've taken them all the way up to final pretrial and charged the county $600–700 of their money for them to dismiss the case when we are set for trial, when there's nothing that new that wasn't there on day one. So they refuse to dismiss cases that they should because they think if they outlast them, the people will get scared and they'll plead probation. That's stopping. If the case can be proven, it can be proven. If it's not, it shouldn't be filed. The jury gets to decide on questions, period. We've had cases in the past where the prosecutors refused to prosecute people, i.e. a doctor, you know, who left fluids on a patient's face and a bunch of other things in a case over in Ennis, Texas, and the prosecutor's remark was, well, just because there was semen on the woman's face when she woke up doesn't mean a sexual offense occurred. So my response was, I bet it would have been if it was your wife. But the fact is, we've got a lot of, they don't file cases they should, they file cases that they shouldn't, and that's going to stop. If somebody's not a very good attorney, they need to find a job.
All right, we have a young lady back here. I'm going to see if she wants to pose a question.
No, she doesn't. That's my wife, everyone. By the way, that's Becky Ramsey in the back there. I don't want her asking any questions.
You'll answer for that later.
Oh, I'm here for it, you bet.
Come on, she's got all the dirt.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, we know it's against the law for a woman to testify against her husband anyway. So. Thank you, Rodney. Any comments you want to end up with?
No, just in this race, I need your vote. I need your help. The Tea Party's been trying very hard. I was supportive of it in the beginning. I've had an absence because trying to make a living. But I've stayed in contact with the guys and supported the ones that I could and, pushed them forward. I think TJ, I've just pushed on him from day one and Harlan and all the people. I appreciate what y'all do. You're not well recognized, you're not well accepted within the establishment, because you don't follow their rules, and that's what it should be. This is a people's movement. And as such, you need to get more involved with it, and you need to be a little bit more aggressive with it, and you need to fill every empty precinct chair that's out there, all of them. If there are any empty ones, fill them all. I think this may be the first time that y'all have a majority in the party come after, will that be correct? You will have a majority, and majority is power. And the establishment will fight you tooth and nail over that, but you know what? Tough. You won. So take advantage of it, and you will see that those people will raise Cain for 2 or 3 times, and then they'll just quit coming. Because if they don't get to play their way, they'll take their toys and go home, and then we can have a change starting in this county that will affect the statewide, and we can move it forward. Let Ellis County be the starting spot. There's tea parties everywhere to get recognition. Why aren't we getting any? Because we're not working as hard as they are. That's why. So we can do that. As far as my job, I'd like you vote. I think I'm a better candidate. I've got a better vision. I've got ways to save money where you don't have, your taxes won't have to go up. But more importantly, I think we need a more open system. We need open government, and we need to protect the citizens of this county and offer services for our young children. If they make mistakes, we can give them diversion instead of deferred adjudication. It's a term of art, but the fact is we can keep these kids from having a record given one shot. They still have to pay for it. But I've got several plans. I have a website, Rodney Pat Ramsey for DA, for EllisCountyDA.com. You can go look it up. I've got some stuff outside. But I need your vote. If you haven't voted yet, when you go vote for me, please. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good question. My name is Linda Lewis. I am an activist for right and wrong. I have been wronged in this county, and Pat Wilson is a DA, and I'm really disturbed about what he is allowing to go on in the district attorney's office. So I would like to ask you, what would you do when an innocent person has been wronged and spends 6 months in jail with no charges? And as a DA, what would you do to fix that? How would you help that individual? And not only that, my child who suffered. What would you do?
2 things. You have a lawsuit going?
Yes, I do.
And well, I've never met you, right?
No, you have
Okay.
not.
I can't discuss your specific situation because you got a lawsuit filed. But what I can tell you is, innocent people shouldn't be charged. And the fact is, you know, the district attorney doesn't always make the determination on innocence or guilt. They make a determination on whether there's enough reasonable suspicion or probable cause to make an arrest. But that's way down here, and proof beyond reasonable doubt's way up here. So you try to keep from indicting or charging people that have not committed a crime. But then if you believe they have, it has to go to the jury, and the jury decides. If the individual requested, everyone's entitled to a jury trial. I don't know what happened on your case, and honestly, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just can't discuss it because of the suit. But I don't necessarily agree with what's happened in the past, and you're certainly entitled to pursue that. I can tell you that my office would not behave the way that this office has in several areas on several occasions.
Well, I was told, even though I have something against you, but I was told that you were the better person for this office, you know, and I would like to have talked with you.
Sure.
Because when judges are allowed to break the law, and the code of conduct which says a judge cannot hear his own case where he is a witness, but yet still he do. So it's a lot. And I just want we as people of the Father to come together and work together, and for justice to be served for everybody. You know, because that's what we need, and that's what the Father wants us to do, is to work together in love. And if Patrick Wilson is doing wrong, he needs to get out of that office, okay? Because he is allowing his assistant attorneys to do wrong and not stand up for justice. So,
Well, I appreciate you being here, Linda. I wish I could discuss it further with you, but I think you understand why I can't.
Oh, yes, sir.
I think you're doing what you should do, and you're pursuing your legal remedy as appropriate. I don't have a problem in the world with that. Okay, you do that. I'm very supportive of individuals and their civil rights and their constitutional rights. I support the Constitution 100%. So we may be on a different side of the fence on something. I don't think we are, personally. But I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and you know, I can't chastise. I can't speak against a judge on a case that's open. I certainly can't do that. You know, it's improper and unethical on several levels. So it's not that I don't want to talk to you, Ms. Lewis. It's just that there's certain restrictions that I have. You know, I'm a municipal judge in 2 little towns, and it's as you said, a canon violation for me to discuss cases that are open in another court. It's not right. So I can just tell you that my office would seek justice, and we would be true and fair. I'm a Christian. That's what I believe in, and I believe people deserve to be treated according to the state law and God's law. And there's a difference. Just because, you know, you don't have to prosecute everybody, and you don't treat everybody like criminals. There are people that break the law that made a mistake, and then there are convicts and criminals. Okay, criminals need to be treated like criminals, and citizens need to be treated like citizens who made a mistake. So I know the distinction. Obviously, it doesn't transfer down to the district attorney's office we have now, but I've had people, I've put plenty of people in prison. I worked narcotics, was a police officer for years, and I've had people send me thank you letters from prison because I treated them like people. And I don't know how to be any other way. I just am who I am. I'm not a politician, not going to be. So I don't like politicians. I don't care. I don't like politics, not the way they are now. But if I get the chance here in a couple of minutes, I'll open up on the country and the state that they'll let me.
The only thing, I didn't have a question necessarily for Rodney. I just wanted you all to know that the district attorney was invited here tonight. He declined, said that he had a conflict in his schedule, so I requested that he answer some questions that we could present to the membership, to the audience here. He had me email them, requested that I email them to a specific account. I did so. In the request, he said, he had his assistant tell me, if you will email the questions to me, I will respond. And that's a quote from her. As of this afternoon, when I left my home at 4:30, no response had come in. But the questions that were posed to him will be posted on the Ellis County Tea Party.org website. The questions that were also posed to the tax assessor candidates will be posted so you can see what was asked, whether they were answered or not.
Nothing to do with me.
Okay.
I'd just like to make for you, Rodney, I'd like to say thank you, Ms. Lewis, for you and your party coming tonight. Come back again. Bring
Now, before we wrap up, Rodney's got some words he wants to share with us. So if everybody will hang in here for a few minutes, these are things that we need to hear.
I'll be short. I used to come and say things quite often because I always have something to say, but and here it is. This country is in a position that it's in by providence. We're surrounded by oceans on both sides, and we have perfect protection north and south. We're here for a reason. Our people fled Europe and England and wherever. It's a melting pot. They came here seeking freedoms, religious freedoms, and freedom from tyranny. And we fought for that. Our founding fathers put up their life, their liberty. They were subject to death for signing the Declaration of Independence, and they stood for that article, and they stood for a lot more, and they suffered a lot worse than the people in this country are willing to do today. We have a lot of people in our military. I've had people say, well, what about a new world order? And there's going to be one. And I said, we will never have one world order until everybody on the planet can get along, and they're not going to. So I'm not worried about that. That's secondary. You know what I'm worried about? I'm worried about Waxahachie, Texas. I'm worried about Ellis County, Texas, and the United States of America. I'm American by birth, but I'm Texan by the grace of God. Okay? We tend to be braggarts, and we love it, and I don't mind doing it because I'm proud of being a Texan. Every time I go to Alamo and I read the names of the men that suffered and died in that Alamo, I cry like a little girl. Because those guys, I look at those names and all the states that they came for, those guys went into a little bitty building knowing they were going to die for Texas independence. That's what's missing in today's society. I call them sheeple. They just show up. Nobody cares. Nobody could care unless it affects their pocketbook. They got a job, they're working, they got their house, they can make their car payment. They don't care who gets elected. You know what happens? We wind up with career politicians like our vice president who brags about not ever having a real job. Well, that's great. That's great. We have people in Washington that couldn't tell you how much a gallon of gas is, what a loaf of bread costs. One of the gurus in the energy department wanted to raise the price of gasoline to $9 a gallon, and then when they asked him, he didn't even own a car. So what does he care? We put ourselves in this position. Everybody, George Bush did this and Ronald, you know what, Nate, I don't care. You know whose fault it is? Everybody raise your hand. It's our fault. Because we put them there. And not only we put them there, we let them stay there, regardless of what they do. And the Republican Party was known for eating its own. You messed up in the Republican Party and you didn't do what you were supposed to do, we got rid of you. Well, that changed. Somehow now we're full of people that don't represent the Republican ideals at all. The platform is completely gone. It's washed out. It's pale. There's no color. We're all about compromise and meeting in the middle. Remember, Reagan had the big tent. His deal was, well, you could come into the tent, but you couldn't bring any liberal or middle-of-the-road ideals with you. If you wanted to come over here and play with us, you had to be a conservative. If you want to be a conservative now, you can come be a conservative, but you got to be a real one. And your record reflects that. It's happened in the national parties, and you know the two-party system is very, very damaging on the national level because we have to pick one or the other, and they've just gained so much control and so much money that you tell me there's 300 million people in this country. 1% of that is what, 300,000 people at least, and these are the candidates we have for president. Out of 300 million people, this is the best we can put together. What does that tell you? We don't want to have an electorate anymore. We've got a group of people, centralized government that decides who, what, when, and where. Now, what's nothing we can do about Washington right now. It's a sinkhole. But we can do something about Ellis County. We can do something about Texas. We can start with local elections, and then we can move up from there. And we can pick the right candidates to send to Austin, and then we can pick the right candidates to send to Washington, D.C., and we can pick people that will go out there that aren't willing to compromise. I don't care about compromise. I don't care if the federal government threatens to withhold my tax dollars that I've paid in. They're not going to give me back my money unless I sign away my Second Amendment. Is that what it was? I can't give my gun or ammunition to my next door neighbor if something, and remember, this is when something bad has happened. Right? I don't have time left. Don't step in the middle of mine, man. I'll get all over like my Second Amendment does not, the Ellis County doesn't dictate my Second Amendment. Period. Doesn't have jurisdictional authority to do so. I don't care what they say. And I'll tell you something else. I know Sheriff Johnny Brown, I'm pretty sure they're not going to arrest you for it. If I'm DA, I'm not going to prosecute you for it. So anytime they want to bring those kind of laws, you bring that in. But the people that signed off on that ought to answer for it. Because it's not right. Career politicians do what career politicians do. They serve one, they may go in there on fire. Next term, they're not so much because they've been shined up a little bit and polished. Third term, they're bought and paid for. And we just keep putting them in there. We just keep re-electing them and re-electing them. It's quite simply no more career politician. Right? We have term limits. They're called elections. You have to question what's the normal, what could be, what's not. And you know, it's when you get into 1 term, 2 terms, I said I'll do 1, maybe 2 if the people ask me to, but I don't need this job. I'm not doing this for the money or the prestige. I'm doing it because we need a new DA, and the same thing needs to happen. If somebody's in the job and doing a great job and they're a good conservative, leave them in there. I don't care if we have term limits. But if they're not, get them out of the job. Don't leave them in there. Get them out of the job. And when you do that, you will get new people in the job. It's going to take change. And it's going to take each and every one of us to make that change. I wrote articles for years and raised 9 kinds of, all the time. And I was not well liked for it. But I just spoke the truth. It is what it is. And it's not hard to recognize what's happening. But you know what? This is the Ellis County Tea Party, right?
Yeah.
It is. So why don't we take back Ellis County? You start off with your precinct chairs, you take the precinct chairs, you get the majority, you get a super majority, and then you start making changes, and then you start finding candidates to run for office that stand for Republican and conservative ideals. People that are truly conservative, not just those that say they are. So I just wanted a little time tonight to get up and rant, rave, and it makes me feel better. But it's something that has to be done, and everybody's thinking it. Just not everybody's saying it. And the minority, when you see these people on television, the vocal minority and these guys that, the ones that raise all the cane, the liberals especially, they got the press. I don't care. I care less. Because they don't have the numbers. And this is what people don't realize. They can have the press all day long. They don't have the votes. And if the conservatives get serious about it and start working with each other, you don't have to be vocal. You don't have to be on television every day to sweep an election. All you got to do is vote. How many people don't vote? How many people haven't voted? What do we get, 9–10% in the primary of elected officials? I mean, the registered voters?
95% of people didn't vote in Red Oak.
I've seen it 9% in the primary. 40%, 50% would be a tremendous amount of voters, and that was last presidential, wasn't
And
it?
what if we have a runoff? How many can we expect?
We just need everybody to vote. And I know y'all do, it's preaching to the choir, but you know what? If y'all go back and tell 10 people and they tell 10 people, then I've reached a whole lot more people than I did tonight. And that's what I'm counting on. Go online, give personal endorsements to your candidates and your friends. Go tell everybody on your Facebook, everybody on your Hotmail, everybody on your text message who you support, because you may not realize it, but most of your friends have no idea who anybody is. So if you say, well, I like this guy and I want to vote for him, they'll vote for him. And all the friends that they have that don't know anything either, they'll tell and they'll vote for him. That's how you get it done, people. So, God, I'm a Christian, but I'm not a preacher. Probably should be. But here's the situation. God put us here for a reason, and this is the greatest nation on the planet, period. We have the greatest, bravest people. We stand as a beacon for the rest of the world for freedom and liberty. There are nations all over this country, all over this planet, that have relied on us for freedom. And we've provided it, and we've been good people for years, for the entire existence. But the last 30 or 40 years, we have lost our way.
Amen.
And losing our way means we've become less godly. We all still go to church, but we've allowed the government to encroach upon our rights and upon our religious freedoms, because people say we need a separation of church and state. Well, everybody knows that's to keep the government out of religion. That doesn't mean that we can't elect religious officials. That doesn't mean that they can't act as Christians and carry Christian ideals with them into office. They sure can. And that's who I want in office, is someone with Christian ideals. And if we don't do what we're supposed to do in this country, God has exercised His right to wrath on us more than one time. And I don't believe He'll have a problem doing it again. If nothing else, He may just decide to turn His back on this nation and let what will be, will be. And we need to stop it. And our nation is worse off now than it's ever been. Morally, our moral compass is spinning. Ethically, in business, you see it every day. How much money can I cheat somebody out of? How many billions can I make? And we don't do it, but we let it happen. So vote for the right candidate. Pick somebody that's going to go into office, raise a little hell, and do what they're supposed to do. And I appreciate the time.
Who are you looking for?
He's right in the back row.
All right, sit next to Amy.
Frank Kuchar came in late. I want to recognize him. We'll give him 2 minutes, and then 2 minutes.
Look, just because I started out my career as a preacher and now I'm in the office, you got to make that point about 2 minutes twice. Okay, I didn't, well, I came and turned around the camera, so I didn't know about came back here.
Oh, wait a minute. You're just gonna introduce yourself. You don't get 2 minutes. Introduce yourself and tell them what you're running for in 30 seconds.
Tea Party's fair.
I think most of you do know me. My name is Frank Kushar, and I am running for the United States House of Representatives to represent the 6th District in the House of Congress, the House of Representatives. And I got into this race because I've had all I can stand and I can't stand no more. I am scared to death, as Rodney was just saying, the direction this country is headed in, and we need to get somebody into Congress who will stand for the Constitution, draw the line, and say, this is where it stops. I don't care about re-election. I don't care about a career. Come January, I will be 60 years of age. I will take the oath to uphold that Constitution, and I don't care about serving there for 20 years or being re-elected, because if I serve and do what the Constitution says, you good folks will be pleased with my actions and you will re-elect me, and that's all that matters, the Constitution and getting us back to where our founders put us on track to be, because right now we're off the rails. So I would appreciate your vote. I have some literature outside you can pick up and go to my website, and I'll get to talk a bit more later, right?
Outside.
Outside. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Wrap this thing up, what? I'll let you do that in a minute. On what Rodney, he never lacks any words for that sort of thing, nor Paul Perry. And I just appreciate the heck out of those guys. They're true patriots. What we need to do on what he was saying and what Frank was saying, we need to know the Constitution. We need to know the Constitution. There is a vast majority in here that we know that we have a Constitution. We know a few phrases here and there about the Constitution. We don't know the Constitution. And I guarantee you, our elected officials do not know the Constitution. I'm starting a constitutional class. It's going to be a 10-week class. There's 2 different ones that we can pick from. I am asking our elected officials, they won't come. I'm hoping that the new ones that get in there, one, I know some of them that have been studying the Constitution pretty thoroughly. We can never have too much of that. But I've asked the candidates that are running, win or lose, to take this class with us. Many of them do not know it. The man that's standing right at the end of that aisle knows the Constitution inside and out. Who wrote it, why they wrote it, how they wrote it, the people that they studied to come up with what they wrote. We need to get that good as well, if we want to save this nation. We cannot elect good constitutional people in our offices if we do not know it. Let's take a class together. Let's take it with our elected officials. Let's put some pressure on some of them to come join us. Tom, that's you too. I don't know how we're going to do that.
Check with the Tea Party in Brazos County. I've been going to their meetings on the same topic. You said you had 2 choices. I don't know which one of the 2 they're doing, but we're going through it down there.
Very good. But other candidates that are in this county, in our cities, let's get them there. Let's, the ones that y'all know personally, you tell them to come. We want them to know the Constitution. That's the only way we're going to save this country. I'm 55 years old. I've got 2 grandkids. We had another child just get married last weekend, 2 weekends ago. So we are, I'm already asking for grandchildren. Grandchildren, as we grandparents know, are a lot better than children.
Because they go home.
But we want to save this country for them. We want to have them have the same freedoms we had. So let's join a study. One of the studies that I'm wanting to do is a study where you can learn to train another group. So we can all walk out of that one study and split up into however many people are in this room and teach it again. and again. And let's cover this nation. Let's teach our country. Let's bring it back. Paul?
I want to clear up an inadvertent error I made, small thing, but if it wasn't for, I'm not as old as Harlan. If it wasn't for 5-hour energy, I probably wouldn't be standing right now, that and a cup of coffee. My son that I was bragging on is will be a constitutionally minded attorney. He wants to specialize in aviation law, and I for some of y'all that remember what I said, which I'm getting to a point where I barely do. So, sorry.
Sorry.
Be a constitutional lawyer.
I meant constitutionally minded.
Now,
Thank you. It's always your friends that correct you. High school, you know, friends.
I want to start that study right after the primary, but I'm going to hold off till the end of July. Because there are going to be some runoff elections in this county. And I want to wait until after the runoff elections to get started. Let's go out and vote, and let's find the right people and vote for them.
Hey, Harlan, would you add, when and if there are runoff elections that we can vote in, be sure that we do show up for those runoff elections. Because most people don't.
And talk to the people that, that need to know about those runoff elections and get them out there, unless they're not. TJ Fabi?
I just want to, we've got 10 days until the election. If you find a candidate, I don't care who it is, whichever candidate that you support, or you find a couple in different races, get behind them and help them in this last 10 days. Because those of us that are candidates, it's not an easy thing to do to run for office. And we need your help. A lot of us are running against a machine. And we're trying to take this machine apart. And we're doing it one piece at a time, and we need your help. These are big parts, and we need help carrying them. And do what? Yes. But find the candidate that you support and ask them what you can do in these last few days to help them get across that finish line.
Yeah, I've had people say that